Yeah, absolutely. And I remember not too long ago, just maybe a few days ago, you put up, without getting into the details of it, because that'd be a bit of a distraction, but you put up something online. I think it's some magazine or something that was interviewing you, and you said something along the lines of, we don't need this postmodern nonsense to be taught to our kids. This stuff which destroys our masculinity or something like that. I don't remember exactly what it
My
was, but
my my words
yeah.
were taken out of context, but I like to elaborate on that actually.
Okay, go ahead.
Like, here's the thing: are we teaching ideologies in school? If we are, we should teach all of them.
Mm,
LGBTQ is another ideology. That's their business. Me, I don't care. If you want to be queer, gay, lesbian, whatever it is, I'm not an expert in this field. I don't even know what all those letters mean, to be honest with you. If you ask me to define them, I probably would get them wrong. Unfortunately, I can't define them perfectly. But that's your ideology. Now they were promoting it to my children. Now, if I walked into an American school, I'm a Canadian. We're socialists here, and I walk up to the children and I start telling them about the wonders of socialism or whatnot. People might get upset at me. They may say, "Hey, look, here we're capitalists. If you want to talk socialism, come talk to us,
yeah.
and we'll decide if we want to expose our kids to this ideology." My children, for me, okay, because here's the thing, how do you define masculinity? Masculinity is a subjective term. If you look up the word masculinity, it's going to say to exhibit masculine traits. What does that mean? You have to define it. And I
Yeah.
did define it. In my interview, I defined masculinity. And the way I define masculinity, not everybody's going to define it the same way. Attracted to the opposite sex. That's how I define it. It's not an objective, because for me, the norm, and I'm using that word in the literal sense,
Mm,
men, by the norm, will be attracted to women. I want to give my sons every opportunity to be conditioned to be heterosexual. And why? Because I put the nuclear family first. For me, my family is ahead of my personal needs and the personal needs of my children. The family as a whole, this is how I operate. The needs of the many, the family, is supersedes that of the individual. Whereas in the West, it's the total opposite nowadays. The Christian Europeans were very, similar to what we are now, to where I am now. But today, the popular thing is, I live my life what makes me happy. And you hear that all the time. If it makes you happy, if you're happy that way, that's good for you. They're not so interested about the collective as a whole. They're living more of an individual life. And that's their business if they want to live that way. Me, I believe that somebody could be naturally gay or you can nurture them to be gay. And there's ample evidence of this. Okay. And if you don't think that you could be nurtured to be gay, you should study history. Because the Spartans were gay, the Greeks were gay, the Romans were gay, and it was a cultural issue as well. Because when the Romans converted to Christianity, well, that's another topic. Basically, take a look, for instance, the Spartans. The Spartans, it was mandatory to be gay. It was mandatory. No, that's not what it is today. But what I'm trying to say is, you can make it normal for somebody. You can condition somebody at a young age, and they were conditioning my children who are prepubescent. And I was just telling people, look, I would like to keep that out of school. Teach my kids math, science, history, logic, and leave the ideologies off the table because we live in a secular state. I live in a secular state. My understanding with the school is they're going to teach my kids math, science, history, teach not to discriminate, but they're not going to put ideologies in their head. Like, I don't go teach their children Islam. I don't go and sit without their parents' permission and say, hey, look, let me tell you about the wonders of Islam. No, they wouldn't like that. They would say, hey, wait a second, that's ideology. Wait a second, you're a math professor. You're supposed to teach math today. Okay?
yeah.
If we can't teach our ideology, you shouldn't teach yours. Nobody should teach theirs. Now, my kids also have a religion class where they teach the major religions, and I'm fine with that. I have no problem with that. My thing is that, look, you're bypassing the parent and you're teaching the children ethics from a particular ideology without our permission. And I got many, many parents reaching out to me, telling me they agree with me. I would say, look, like 80% of the messages I've been getting are positive. Oh, thank you. Tell them no, because the same thing's happening in my school. Same thing's happening with my kids. They keep encouraging our kids to be a certain way. For me, I put a high premium on my progeny. I don't want anybody messing with it. I tell my sons, hey, you're hetero. By the way, you're hetero. I'm hetero. My father was hetero. We're all hetero all the way up, all the way to Adam and Eve were hetero. If your teacher thinks you should be otherwise, tell him to talk to me. I'm your parent. Let him to argue with me. I have a trained mind, My son, he's young. He's very, very young. You're talking to a guy who he's too young to have formulated opinions yet. So this is my big issue, which I think is something that I think most parents feel like. They also agree with me. At least that's
and
what
I think what you related it
come
to,
across.
you related it to masculinity, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was very important because recently, you know, there's been a huge online and offline dispute between evolutionary psychologists and feminists, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what we find is that they don't want, the feminists and the post-constructivists and these lot, they don't want the idea that patriarchy, traditional gender roles, and what they consider toxic masculinity, but what from a evolutionary psychological point of view is simply a defense mechanism in which the males are overly protective of their females. And I'm going to say their females because that's the hierarchy within which we supposedly evolved. So the feminists don't like that because it's giving a biological underpinning to something that they believe is a social construct. However, even from a purely materialistic, Darwinistic point of view, these things are inherently biological, and they're there as an evolutionary stable strategy. It's there to stabilize the population so that your progeny continues on and your ideas spread, and all these types of sub mechanisms continue. So when we start to vilify masculinity, we will have situations in which there'll be severe violence towards women, and there'll be the bystander effect. You know, men will not stand up for women. They will not, if they don't stand up for their women, they will not stand up definitely for other women. I remember one particular evolutionary psychologist. Her name is Leda Cosmides. Her and her husband, they're known to be, you know, pioneers of this field for the last 30 or so years. You know, she said this about toxic masculinity and about, you know, feminists and the way that they try and attack masculinity. She said, look, I have a father, and, you know, she was, from my understanding, an only child. So her father and then her mom. And she's like, you know, my father, I knew would defend me, and I knew he would have this thing where he'd be masculine and he'd be overprotective and he'd provide and so on, so forth. I don't remember exactly what she was saying, but she was essentially saying, look, this basically silly idea that you know, we don't need this masculinity, we don't need you know, these types of things. No, actually, these are there for a reason, and when you destroy them, you will essentially destroy society.
Can I
How
ask you a
can
question?
you?
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Tomorrow, imagine there's the Third Reich and the Nazis are knocking on our door. And they look around, they say, where are our men? Oh, you've detoxified them from their toxic masculinity. They can't even pick up a gun now. They have no toxic masculinity. You've weeded them out completely. They've become sheep. Now you're going to be begging for toxic masculinity. Now's the day. Today, when violence is at the door, you're going to sober up. This is my argument. When violence is at the door, you're praying. You're going to be praying that I conjure up that toxic masculinity you thought that was so disgusting. It's such a lie. It's this open lie we tell ourselves, and it's young children who've never seen violence in their life that say that, oh, masculinity is all toxic. Now listen, there is a certain level of masculinity that is toxic. You can have too much masculinity. Okay, I'm with you on that. But what they're saying is absurd. They're just ignorant of history. I'm sorry to tell you, they're spoiled, young, and they're ignorant of history. If tomorrow there's another Reich rising up and we don't have our men to round up, and they're not getting us, listen, I'm in the gym all day. I'm in the fight world all day. I see this toxic masculinity. I'm so in it that I don't even see it anymore, okay? There is a time and place where you want to release that toxic masculinity, my friend. There is a time and place where that's the best thing to have around you right now. I'm hoping we have that. Let me give you a really good example. I recently saw this video. It's very disturbing to me. It's about this 75-year-old man sitting on a plane and he's eating. He pulls down his mask. He's eating. And this girl comes up. She jumps out of her chair. She's like, put up your mask. Put up your mask. Now, she's a young girl. I would say 23, let's say. And the guy's like, hey, excuse me, I'm eating. And she's like, put your mask. And she's cursing him. Now, he's a 75-year-old man, but he's got enough youth in him left to hurt her physically.
Yeah.
Not that he would, not that he would, not that he should. But in this woman's mind, there's no possibility of violence, you know. In her mind, there's no possibility of violence, okay? And there shouldn't be. She lives in a civil society, okay, fine. I'm for this. I'm 100% agreed. But then she initiates violence. She spits on him. You have to see this video. It just happened recently. She slaps the man.
Aeroplane?
Airplane, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Think about it. They're 10,000 feet in the air, whatever it may be. She slaps the man. She initiates violence. I'm thinking, wow, this is like, she's escalated now. Not only they're on a plane, she's doing this over a man not wearing a mask during eating, which is allowed. By the way, I've been on planes. You're allowed to pull your mask down to eat.
Yeah.
So the man refuses to put a mask. She slaps him, and the guy stays cool. He says, look, that's assault. Now you did it. Now you're in trouble. She could have been a victim. And thank God the guy didn't get up and beat her senseless. Okay. I'm very grateful for you. He didn't. But the thing is, she put herself in such a horrible position. And in my mind, she doesn't understand the reality of the world, because tomorrow, if she tries that again with the wrong guy, she might get a taste of violence that she doesn't. Listen, Sabur, I'm very familiar, but a broken orbital is a very serious thing. A concussion is a very serious injury. Yeah. Broken ribs can kill you. They can puncture your lung and kill you. Like she was, if that was my daughter, I would have been furious with her. I'm telling you, I would have been furious. You don't do that, because in her mind, society is going to stop. Like, either she doesn't know anything about physical altercation. She thinks society, it's unheard of for a man to hit a woman. Okay, and it's true, and it should be, and I understand. We don't hit women. I'm for that. But she put herself in such an element of danger. But that guy, I'm surprised he was able to control himself, because if a woman spit at me and hit me in the face, I wouldn't hit her, but I would definitely grab her and put her down and do a citizen's arrest. Like I would control her physically without harming her, but I would control her physically. And I don't care who's there. There's nobody's going to be able to stop me. But it seems like the youth today, they don't understand that we live in a very peaceful time, and it wasn't always like that. And to get this peace, we had to fight really hard. To get these rules that protect you, that you can go out and spit on a man and insult him. It took a lot of men dying on the battlefield. Yeah. You know, if you look at the Arabs, today, I can go in the Middle East today, lay down on the street with $1 million on my lap, literally $1 million cash on my lap, and nobody's going to touch it. Why? Because Islam laid a law in the Middle East, and that law protects me from harm. Today, you could walk. Every time I go to the Middle East, I have not a worry in the world. No matter what time of the day I'm walking the street, I know nobody will touch me, nobody will harm me. What did it take to get that peace? Well, if you study the civilization, the Arab civilization, there was no civilization before Islam. 3,000 years of Arab history. It was the law of the jungle, tribe versus tribe, blood feud after blood feud. It was kill or be killed. Who might is right. It took a long time and a lot of fighting to get the world where it is today.
Yeah.
To turn around and say the men who fought, and they were bad, because that's what they do. They look back, oh, you fought wars, that was bad. Man, they're so spoiled. They're so spoiled. They benefited so much from toxic masculinity that now they turn around, and I hate to call it that, because I should call it bravery, to go out there and meet your opponent on the battlefield and fight to the death. You know, Sabur, I'm in MMA, okay? And I think MMA is the toughest sport in the world. I can't imagine what they did when they fought with swords and bow and arrows and fire and boulders and machine guns and bombs and landmines. To me, when I try to imagine it, how difficult it is for me to see people fight just punching bone on bone. I find that so tough to deal with. Imagine it was swords and friends and family being killed and killing people. Like, how do you sleep at night the next day? The human beings went through so much to build a society that we have today that's stable. We live in a very stable society. If you know your history is just one giant bloodbath to get us to here. We literally live in the most peaceful time in history. And it has a lot to do. It has a lot to do with men standing up and fighting to the death to establish law. If we're on the Titanic, Sabur, and it's sinking, and I yell out, women and children first. Am I being a toxic masculine? Am I toxic? Is that toxic masculinity? Is that toxic masculinity? If I say no, women and children first, why? because we're men, by and large, we're stronger, we have more chance to survive. And so what if we die? We're expendable. So what if we die? First of all, a woman, she might be carrying a baby. That's 2 people you save. Second of all, not only are we more robust physically, but if a few of us survive, we can repopulate our civilization. It's true. Where if many men survive and very few women, you won't be able to repopulate civilization. There's a pragmatism to it. Yeah. Now you put me on a Titanic full of women. Better yet, I'll tell you this, okay? I'm writing a story. Tell me if you're going to buy this book. It's a woman's erotic novel. It's about this guy who he has no toxic masculinity whatsoever. He has a very, very soft voice. He wears dresses and he puts on makeup every day. And he's heterosexual though. And he's the most effeminate human being in the world. And that's the end, the story. That's the story. That would be the world's worst erotic novel. Women would never read this book. The top erotic novels are always Sabur, always a bad guy with a motorcycle who's got a chip on his shoulder, who's untamable, and she has to, maybe if he falls in love with her, he'll change his ways for her. It's always the most toxic, masculine men seem to be what women secretly always want to buy and sell. That's what they spend their dollars on, Sabur. That's what I believe they really want. They tell you, oh, I want a guy who rolls over and begs for a snack, a dog treat. A lap dog. I want a lap dog. I want a boyfriend who's a lap dog. I want a husband who's a lap dog. But then when it's time to spend their dollars on what entertains them, they're going to buy the... Listen, Western women speak against toxic masculinity, but they spend their dollars on the most toxic men. They love and they're attracted to the most toxic men. And Arabs, we have a machismo. We admit we have to. Yes, men are men.
Yeah.
And you know what? I always tell my sons, I always tell all my students, I was like, are you attracted to masculine females or feminine females? They always tell me feminine, of course. What do you think women are attracted to? They're attracted to masculine traits. Now, again, it's a subjective term. But the point being is, don't believe what they're telling you. It's not true. You're gonna get what they call in the West here, they call it friend zoned. Oh, you're nice, we accept you, but we don't want nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
You get friend zoned. Guys like me, we get married over and over again. We get remarried. If I get divorced, I'll get remarried. It won't be long before I'm remarried. It won't be long. My toxic masculinity won't get in the way of me getting married. Believe me, I'll get remarried quickly, very quickly. They're convincing the youth that if you want women to like you, you have to behave in a certain way. It's totally untrue. My biggest argument, read what's their #1 romantic novels. Read what it is, their romantic novel. It's always a toxic male. It's always a question of toxic masculinity. It's the thing that makes them most entertained. Okay, if I'm on the Titanic and I say women and children first, I'm not being toxic. Nobody, even the most hardcore feminist, is going to agree with me now. She won't agree with me when we're in the classroom. No. But when we're on the ship and the sharks are circling the water, because the first few bodies have fallen in already, and the sharks know there's blood in the water, and they're circulating, and it's me or her who gets in the boat, and I'm like, after you, ladies first. She's not gonna say I'm a toxic. She's not gonna say I'm a toxic male. Women throughout history never talked about toxic masculinity. Why? Because they knew that what was standing between them and the tribes from the other world, from the other side, was their men. Okay, there is no when violence is on the table, Sabur, they're going to sober up. Now there's no violence. There's no great war. There's no great invasion. We're the allies in World War II. Were there being toxic? Was that toxic masculinity? When they stormed Normandy, were the women like, hey, no. It should be one woman, one man, 50-50. We're going with you guys. We're going to hold in solidarity. Okay, it was a different time then. They didn't have feminists. Tomorrow, we have a new Normandy. If we have a new Normandy, it's illogical. Think about this, Sabur. Imagine me and you, we're going to war. You have your nation, I have mine. I'm going to send 50% women and 50% men because I'm fair.
Yeah.
You're going to send 99% of your men. Half my men die, half my women die. I come back. The next year when we fight, I have half the population you have. You've repopulated. You're ready for the second meeting. Every year or two we're fighting. You're going to quickly outdo me. Why? Yeah. Because you need a certain number of men to repopulate your civilization. 10 years from now, the next generation is already fighting me, and I'm not ready. I'm not repopulated yet. History wasn't the champions of history are not the champions because they were dumb. They did what was pragmatic, what was smart, and there's a prestige that comes with that. If you go on a campaign for 3-4 years and you come back, Sabor, and you conquered your enemies and you brought us back resources, you deserve that prestige.
Yeah.
You deserve, as you retire, as you get older, to become the chief. You deserve to become the leader of our world. You deserve to be the head of our civilization. You deserved it. You earned it. You were correct in making those calls. You went on the battlefield. You made the right choices. You got the spoils. You're the hero of this generation. You deserve it. Today, to come here and live in the sweet civilized society and act the way they do, it's just pure ignorance. Believe me, once violence, and trust me, I'm a guy who's seen too much violence in his life, they will sober up quickly. I'll tell you one more anecdote.
Yeah.
I had a feminist. I had the world's greatest feminist walk into my gym, like a real feminist. And don't get me wrong, I think women could be great athletes. I think women could be intellectuals. I hold women in high regard. Okay, I hold women in extremely high regard. But what I'm saying is, don't critique the decisions of the past. They were champions for a reason. The heroes of our history were champions for a reason. That's all I'm trying to say. This woman came and she asked me we're sparring, boxing. Now, I don't wrestle with women, but I'll box with women because there's no physical contact, really. Okay, we're just like boxing, you know. So I was boxing with her and she got angry with me. She said, "You're not hitting me like if I was a man." I said, "Well, you know, you're smaller than me. Like, I'm much more experienced than you." And she got upset with me. She's like, "I want you to hit me like I'm a man." I said, "It's not right. I can't do that." So I didn't spar with her anymore. She got angry with me. We had an issue. I tried to have somebody talk to her. She was very upset. She wants me to spar with her like I spar with a professional fighter. I'm like, "It's not even the question that you're a woman. You're smaller than me." She's like literally 40 pounds smaller than me. And she has 15 years less training than me, 20 years less training than me. Like, she was very adamant. So I had a smaller, I'm telling you, after she kept arguing with all of it. "Oh, you're treating your sexist." And I let one guy give her a body shot, a smaller instructor of mine, about her size. I'm like, "Look, just give her a taste. Don't hurt her. Give her a taste." He floored her with a body shot. Give her a body shot, hit in the body, very safe, no broken bones. Like, the guy, he's a black belt. He knows what he's doing. He's not going to hurt her. But she's campaigning for this. And I understand she's never felt it. You've never touched a hot pot. You don't know what being burned is. I get it. Okay. I tried to talk to her rationally. She didn't want. She petitioned. She said I was sexist. She wrote it on the internet that we're sexist. She campaigned against us. I said, "Okay, we'll let you spar." She gets dropped with a body shot. She never asked for it again. She never asked for us to spar with her like she's a man again. There's a reality in this world, guys. There's a reality in this world. There is a harm that when violence is on the table, when profit and loss is life-threatening, then all your theories in the classroom, many of them will fall by the wayside. It's theoretical. This whole thing of stop letting men be men. This whole thing is just a crazy theory that you will really regret in the future, in my opinion. Okay, because don't get me wrong, I'm not saying women can't be fighters. I've seen women that are real fighters, just as tough or tougher than men. But there is, on average, a colossal difference between the physical attributes of a man and a woman.
Yeah.
You go and you try to create the world's best football team, women's football team, American football. And you put them against the world's best. There's a reason why we separate men and women in sports, guys. There's a reality out there that why don't women petition that female wrestlers wrestle male wrestlers? If you're a feminist, if you're a third wave feminist, if you're a third or fourth wave feminist, why don't you petition that men and women should be able to fight in boxing together? Nobody does that. Why? We all agree, look, there are physical limitations. There are things that shouldn't be done. I personally don't want to see a woman fight a man. Even if the woman wins, because there are women that could beat men. There's no doubt. But by and large, on average, there's going to be a colossal advantage to the men. It goes to the men. You see it in sports.
Yeah.
That's why we separate each other. It's once you take these theories and put them on the table, in principle, we're equal, yes, but there are things that women are better than men, and there are things that men are better than women. If I'm laying down in my bed at night somewhere and there's a strange sound in the home, and I think it's an intruder, I don't send my wife. And if I sent my wife and something happened to her, my sons what are they going to think of me? "Well, Dad, you're fair. One time it's you that checks, one time it's Mom that checks." My sons would disown me. They would think of me I'm a coward.
Yeah, absolutely.
They would curse me. They would probably spit on me. They would think I'm a fool. I'm a loser. I'm a nothing to them.
Yeah.
And I would have died 1,000 deaths. Shakespeare was right. A coward dies 1,000 deaths. He's right. Don't listen to these feminists that tell you that we're equal in every single way, in every single element, socially speaking. There's a time where men have to step up and take care of business. If I'm sleeping in the middle of the night and I hear a strange sound, there's no doubt in my wife's mind that I'm going to get up. And I'm willing to die or kill to protect my family. And that is a very important definition when it comes to man. They're trying to take away from our youth. Like it's going to backfire on the men who accept it. They're going to find themselves friend zoned. And this is just a friendly warning to men out there. I know a lot of guys are going to take this and write an article about what I just said. I know a lot of guys right now are so happy. Oh, they're typing away. Oh, coach said so many things. I don't take any of this back. I'm 100%. I 100% stand behind what I said. I'm telling you, young men out there, don't let them feminize you. Be respectful to women. You know, there's a hadith that says women, they're half the population and they gave birth to the other half. No, women are the most important person in society. The mother is the greatest person in your society.
Yeah. So sorry to
nobody higher.
Yeah. Sorry to just correct you. That's the statement of Imam Josie. Yeah. It's not a hadith, but still.
It's not a hadith. Pardon me. I've heard it. So I'm conflating it. Pardon me.
Yeah.
I get hit in the head a lot, Sabur. Okay. It's all jumbled. It's somewhere in there. It's jumbled up.
Yeah. Anytime you hear, always fact check. Always fact check,
please.
guys.
We're
happy
for
you guys
always,
fact check. But you know,
reliable.
I just wanted you to just segue this into the next part, which fits in really well, which is the